the best a founder CEO can do is to future-proof their company against them leaving or having some terrible fatal accident, right? You never want you want the company to continue on for beyond any one person.
Welcome to the DesignRush podcast. I'm your host, Bianca Mayer. Today, we're thrilled to welcome Jonathan Levine, the visionary CEO and founder of Master & Dynamic, a brand synonymous with premium sound and innovative design in the audio industry. In this episode, we'll explore Jonathan's fascinating journey from his early inspirations to establishing a leading company in the high-end audio market. As we delve into these insightful topics, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons to stay updated on the latest insights from industry leaders. So once again, very warm welcome to you here today, Jonathan. Now, I just wanted to, before we dive into the intricacies of, leadership and your CEO role at Master & Dynamic, I'd like to first begin by exploring the roots of your journey. Now, starting off, could you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit and, tell us about your journey to becoming the leader of Master & Dynamic? I mean, were there any key moments or decisions that led you to where you are today in the audio industry?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Levine. I'm the founder and CEO of New York-based Master & Dynamic. I started the company sort of on a whim started ideating it back in 2013. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was in the process of selling a company and thinking about what my next business might be. My oldest son, Robert, gave me the idea for Master & Dynamic. Actually, it was both my sons, Justin and Robert, who were very into music and design, and couldn't find the right headphones. So literally, that's how I started Master & Dynamic.
Amazing. Okay, I'd like to hear more about that a little bit. But so they couldn't find the right headphones. So then what was the process there? What did that look like?
Well, it's, I think every business I've started, Master & Dynamic being my fourth, really came from my looking for something in the market and couldn't finding it. And so I just decided to create it and build it myself. Now, in the beginning, I really didn't have much experience, so it was a little bit more difficult. But obviously, as I became more experienced and built great teams, it became much easier. And I'm still doing that today. At Master Dynamic, our primary focus is audio, but we're tapped more and more by leading companies to help them create innovative technologies and products. So it's become a nice part of our business and expands our universe in terms of creativity and the companies we work with.
Did you realize that it was going to be such a mammoth that it is today when you first started it back then?
Well, I think we still have a long way to go. I think I think the British have a term, punching above your weight. I think we've been doing that since day one, both by design and by luck. We get to work with great companies. So no, I probably not. Every business I've ever started, every partnership collaboration we do today, all starts from us just wanting to put out great product into the world. That's what we focus on. And I believe that sort of focus and drive and determination is what leads to the success. So we don't leapfrog to success. We do the hard work in between.
100%. Although I do think you're being a little bit humble, but that's all right. So I also wanted to ask you, Jonathan, now in the industry of, sound and technology and entrepreneurship, are there any experts or brands or, informative sources that you look up to or have drawn inspiration from?
I grew up at a time where audio had a very different presence in a person's home. I remember as a young boy having a stereo system in our living room. It was a tuner, it was a turntable, some sort of beautiful wood bookshelf speakers. When I made some money during high school, probably one of the first things I did is buy a similar stereo system for my room. So I think, no different than teenagers then or teenagers now. I think music is just pervasive, and I think only through Master Dynamic did I learn the power of music in the creative process. But I've always been into design before, beyond audio. I think for me, it's really about design and materials. The things I collected as a boy, the things I studied, the things I use and collect today, they're all based on, wow, I really like this company. I really like what they stand for. They have a point of view. And so really it's beyond audio. It's really becomes about design and architecture and things like that is what drives us.
Mm-hmm. And are there any specific ones that you really like?
Oh boy. Trying to think, my first partnership at Master Dynamic was Leica camera. And that's because I've always admired Leica camera.
Oh.
Their design, their materials, their sort of sense of heft. That's always been one. I'm sort of car obsessed, and I've always loved automobiles, old and new. So Jaguars, vintage Jaguars, Porsches, you name it. I've studied it, and I spend a lot of time looking at cars and working in the car world, both for business and also for design and brand inspiration. Again, we work a lot in the luxury world, and so we take inspiration from there.
Okay, very cool. So let's shift the focus a little bit more to Master and Dynamic now. So could you provide for our audience just a brief overview of the company? Obviously, we know that you do audio equipment, but I'd like to specifically know what is your core missions and goals that truly drive the company?
I think it's everything we do, every product we've ever made, every product we continue to make, in our go forward product roadmap, it literally all starts with design. Would we want to wear it and use it? Do we think the public would want to wear it and use it? And until we can answer that question and get that right, we don't move forward. Then we layer in all of our other expertise, which is technology, materials, manufacturing. But the mission is really to put out, beautiful, sophisticated products into the world, and that create a little bit of surprise and delight for the consumer. Our products generally tend to not look and feel like other competitive products, and I think people appreciate them more and more. While in summary, while a lot of companies tend to dumb down their products because of cost constraints or margin constraints or competitive constraints, we sort of take the opposite approach. We're always sort of putting more and more into our products, and I think it's working.
All right, so we've kind of covered a little bit about what Master and Dynamic does. So what I'd like to know is, what are you currently doing, to stand out in this crowded space, particularly regarding product design, which is something that you say you're very passionate about as well, and technological innovation, of course. So could you delve into, the unique aspects of your product designs and, the technological advancements that really define Master and Dynamics offerings in the market?
Well, when I started the company, our only products were analog. So the only technology we really had to work think about was obviously materials and manufacturing processes, but acoustics, which we got right from the start. And then, of course, something like called Bluetooth and wireless connectivity came along, and now that dominates the market. So we had to learn very quickly how to compete in that market. And, frankly, we were a small company going up against giants, and we probably, lagged a little bit. But because we're small, we're aggressive, we're competitive, we quickly hacked our way into that sort of tech community and ecosystem. And I would say that, today, the products that we put out in the market, in terms of the technology they integrate, is on par with, if not in many cases better than, some of our biggest competitors, including Apple and Bose. So we've really been able to sort of compress that gap. And I think part of it is the fact that we are very collaborative by nature. So a lot of there are, entrepreneurs all the time creating different technologies that want to find a home for it. A lot of times if they go to a larger corporation, it's a much longer, slower process. A lot of times they bump into what's called a not invented here mentality. Whereas when they come to us, we hear them out, we meet, we engage, and if we like it, we move quickly and everybody benefits. So I think this is only going to accelerate in the future. And I'm excited about it. So, we're talking about design, DesignRush, but we absolutely, could be considered a technology company at the same time.
100%. I mean, I do want to go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier, and that was something that you said, that, you guys were a smaller company and you were going up against like these bigger tech giants and stuff. I would love to know how you navigated that, especially in the beginning, because I can imagine that must have been quite intimidating in some ways. Of course, I can imagine it's not an easy thing to do. So I'm just wondering, what was that really kept you going? Were there any challenges that you faced in that process, or like even a moment where you were like, "Ooh, I don't know if we can actually do this"? And if so, how did you then go past that?
Throughout the course of Master Dynamic, there's been, I wouldn't say huge challenges, but always challenges. I think the first challenges I ran into as I started to build the team, I wanted to attract the best talent, but sometimes that's not always easy when you're a small startup, and there are companies out there that are proven, that are more stable, vying for those employees. Then, of course, when we went to go to manufacture products, we wanted the best in class manufacturing partners, but they, were a little skittish because obviously, there's a graveyard of hardware companies out there who had great ideas but didn't execute well. So, I think, but every challenge that you get through gives you the confidence to get through the next ones. I really, maybe it's because by definition as an entrepreneur, you have to be an optimist. I don't see I'm not concerned about any clear challenges for 2024. I'm actually quite optimistic about the product we will bring to market and some of the sort of future-proofing products that we are bringing to market that I think will surprise a lot of people. We just need the world to stay together. That's just a different conversation.
Oh, okay. So I can't get you to leave a little hint of what that product might be?
Well, I think that there is a growing, sort of a nascent almost invisible desire by consumers to be able to disconnect from their phones more than they can now. And I think that there's an opportunity to do that just through audio. So we are feverishly working on some ideas there. Habits, it's hard to undo habits, but we believe that with the right products, with the right experience, we can help in that respect. That's what I can tell you. How's that?
That's good enough. I will definitely be keeping my eyes peeled for that one, because I could definitely use some time away from my phone, but still want to be entertained for sure. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to ask you was, in building Master and Dynamics brand and market presence, how significant would you say the role of outsourcing external agencies or partners like the ones that DesignRush hosts on a platform has been? I mean, can you share some insights on how some of these outsourced collaborations have, contributed to your brand's growth, if at all?
So when I started Master Dynamic, because it was a very different business than the ones I had been in, we were building a global brand very quickly. We were going heavy into e-commerce. So, and I really, I had limited resources. So I tried to save all of my resources for hiring great product people and designers. And I thus, by definition, outsourced pretty much everything else: branding, social media, website development. And through it, we created a great brand, a great experience. And I met a lot of creative people in those agencies, and who are still friends today and collaborators. And then, as we grew, I wanted to have more control of that, right? So we actually basically brought all of those capabilities in-house, built an art team, built an e-commerce team, social media. The only thing we still outsourced was our sort of digital spend. We really needed somebody, an expert, to help guide us through that. And then fast forward, we've actually now switched it up again, where a lot of what we're doing, what we brought in-house, we're actually now pushing back out to agencies. Why? One is just because our business has changed and we really need more internal resources for product development. And there's some great agencies and people out there who really, that's what they do all day long. And so we want to tap into their expertise. So it's kind of been a whole 360 journey for us in that respect.
So, also, again, in an industry that obviously balances creativity with business efficiency, how would you say Master and Dynamic aligns this innovative endeavors, with business objectives? I mean, what's your philosophy on this, and what do you consider the perfect balance between the two?
So, I think, again, it goes back to our sort of core DNA and mission is we love creating beautiful products. They don't always have to just say Master and Dynamic. We love creating products with and for other companies. And, we've built this process and system over the years. I think we're probably the only ones in the industry who can do what we do at the level we do it, at the pace we do it, at the scale we do it. And we've been able to show partners how they can be successful in this category of premium audio, luxury audio, however you want to define it. And so, if you're working with the right partners and you have the same objectives, which is create something beautiful, long lasting, and create value for the consumer, then it tends to work more times than not. And I think, nothing, I don't want this to be interpreted that our early partners were not special. They were, and they helped get us to where we are today. But, I think the companies we are engaging with today are at a very different level. So the business opportunity is more significant for both of us.
Now, Jonathan, just navigating, from the specifics of Master and Dynamic, I want us to enter into the broader realm of, leadership. I mean, you're a CEO and you've been, as you say, a serial entrepreneur. So I think your insights into, how to manage a team and organization would be super invaluable for us. Now, as a CEO of a company that thrives on innovation and quality, identifying and fostering talent must be a key priority, which is something I think that you touched on earlier as well. Could you, in that case, share your philosophy or strategies for spotting potential talent within Master and Dynamic? Specifically, what sort of character traits do you consider really essential in defining good talent?
Well, I have been very lucky. I think I'm a better identifier of talent than I am maybe a manager. My management style is, lead by example. I push myself hard. I push my team hard, but fairly. I think the people who do well at Master Dynamic, and we don't have a lot of turnover, is they're curious. They like to create. They like to They know the benefit of multitasking. Obviously creative, and so we've got a great team, great global team, and I think my role is to keep helping them create projects and bring in new projects that they can be proud of, because I think at the end of the day that everybody wants to be proud of what they're doing and the product and what they're putting out into the world. And so that's my responsibility. And that's what I focus a lot on.
But are there any specific key characteristics that you look for in your team?
It's a good question. I want to think a bit more out of it, but I think curiosity. I'd have to focus on curiosity. Is that now? How do you define curiosity? I think you just know it when you see it. But I like people who are curious. I like people who can run with their own ideas, but also be open to running with other people's ideas. I when I was in college, I worked in a restaurant, and so which was a great experience for me. And so whenever I get a resume or a LinkedIn profile and I see somebody has worked in a restaurant business, they always get an interview, because I think there's something very special about that environment that can lead to success.
What is it about that environment that you think could lead to success? I mean, I worked in a restaurant as well, but I'm curious to know why you say that.
I think it's very, by definition, I mean, there's many roles in a restaurant. I pretty much did them all over time. I think a lot of it is just, I mean, my first experience in restaurants was at a very high level. So maybe I was spoiled, or maybe it was, part of my development, but, it's about quality of product, and it's also about multitasking, because, there's always something, always a fire to put out, and it's also customer facing. So if you take those three things, that's, that skill set is pretty much, in my opinion, fungible across almost any profession. So I think that's why they always get a special look from me when I see that on their resume.
Okay, so not just getting a little bit more, or getting back to, how you were talking about your talents and everything. So once you've identified someone, or, identified a team of people that really have the talents or the things that you're looking for in them, how do you then go about to develop their, talents, and how do you ensure that their growth is in harmony with Master and Dynamics and visions and objectives?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, I've been able to hire great people, and many of them are better managers than me. So they're really tasked with managing their teams um, in the way that I think those employees want to be managed and are used to being managed. For me, it's just it's a very flat organization at Master Dynamics. So we all work together. I'm deep in, I have calls multiple times a day with my product team and design team working on projects. So I'm in the thick of it with them. And it's a process that works. And so I think pretty much everybody's voice is equal. There's no real hierarchy. And so I think that helps people be motivated and engaged, and people can grow to their, to meet their ambitions or aspirations, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to actually say that it really does, I think, in that case, give people, like you said, the space to really grow and develop their own ideas, right? And as you guys are a creative company and you want people to be curious. And I think allowing them to have their own opinions and be able to have inputs in what happens definitely fosters that for sure. And I actually think a lot of companies are doing that now. And speaking of what other companies are also doing, I know that companies like Meta and Spotify have been shifting towards, a flatter organizational structure. And this is in an effort to enhance agility and efficiency. Now, considering this trend, has Master and Dynamic considered making similar adaptations?
Probably, but I think it's, listen, I'm in awe of some of these huge organizations, many of which we work with. They just have so many moving parts, so many people, and their organizations were developed over time, maybe in a certain way. So I think it's the right direction. I think and I'm not going to bet against them, but I think it might be a bit harder than they think, or maybe take a bit longer, and it just might take a little bit of time to cycle through, if that makes sense. But I think the whole sort of remote working. I'm actually not working from home. I'm actually on the road. We're speaking from Los Angeles, where I am today on business. But we work pretty much. We're still a remote company for the most part. I think part of this sort of reorganizing organizations might be due to this sort of change in sort of work habits and roles. So I think and again, companies are going back to the office, some full-time, some part-time, but I think, it may have come out of that whole thing of people working remote. And so by definition, when you're working remote, the hierarchy is maybe a bit harder to maintain, and maybe it just goes away on its own.
Okay, so in your experience as well, Jonathan, what would you say are the most effective ways to inspire your employees to really engage in continuous learning and adaptation, and especially regarding the newer trends and technologies that are emerging?
Well, hopefully they're, as I said, if you go back to this core quality of curiosity, they're doing it on their own continually. Whether it be on a professional level, on a personal level. And I think you just have to make them feel safe and comfortable sharing that curiosity. The idea that there are no bad ideas, type of thing. And so we're always, I'm always pinging them with, hey, can we look at this? Just literally, and I'll get an idea and I'll say, do you guys know anything about this? And we'll have a meeting about it. And that might lead to something we didn't think about, or a bit of a tangent. Well, we never really thought about this, but what about this? And so again, that's sort of how I've lived my whole life, is bouncing, being able to be focused, but also flexible. And I think that's really important. I think in in any profession, in any role, is that combination of being able to focus when you need to focus, and being able to think freely and ideate when it hits you.
Exactly. Okay, so by the same token, then, how do you go about fostering leadership developments within your team? I'm wondering if there are any key things that you look out for, things that you help team members that you really can see a strong leadership in, how you help them develop that skill, really.
We're still a small organization compared to our competition, but we have our team has grown over the years. First, I identify if people have some people want to manage and are good at leadership, and others don't, and either one is fine with me. Once somebody shows a capacity for management, then I do everything I can to encourage it. And, I don't want to say top people or key people, but, I'm constantly encouraging certain parts of our team, certain members of our team, to leverage themselves. I mean, that's ultimately how you grow, is how one person can become 3 people, can become 6 people. And the only way to do that is to have good people to delegate to and to trust. And so, I think the other thing is, in part of that is, mistakes always happen. I'm sure I've made the same mistakes 3 times over it throughout my career. I try not to make them anymore, and certainly when I make them, hopefully the damage is smaller. But mistakes are just part of life and a part of business, and nobody gets in trouble when problems arise or mistakes happen. That's, in my opinion, not a great way to foster leadership and to foster risk taking. And I think that's part of our DNA as well. I always tell people when they start with me at the company, I'm like, listen, you'll never get in trouble. Again, just when I say trouble, it's sort of just, for point of view. But I tell them, you'll never get in trouble with me for asking for help. You will get in trouble if something goes awry and you hadn't asked for help, which is a bit different. That's sort of, they have to hear it maybe once or twice to really understand it. And I think the proof is in the pudding that no one gets in trouble for asking for help, right? They're not hired to be, complete experts. They're hired to be able to work together to solve problems.
Exactly. I really love that mentality. I think often, especially when you first start out at a company, we all get kind of thrown into the deep end at first, and we have to sort of swim our way through that. And I think that really does make people feel quite rest assured. Now, I did want to ask you though, you were talking about, sometimes we make mistakes and all of that stuff. Now, in your career, maybe not just at Master and Dynamic, was there ever a really big mistake you made in business that you rectified, and what did you learn from that, and how did you rectify it?
I think the biggest mistakes that I've made in any business I've been in, including Master Dynamic, is, as an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, you have to trust your instincts, and you have to be willing to take risks. And I think, as I said earlier, you're sort of, you're basically an optimist by definition. And so what does that mean? That means you're constantly willing to take risks on people and in partnerships. And I think the thing that I'll probably always have to deal with, and I think it's just part of life, is partnering with somebody who presents themselves in one way and acts a different way. And it's very disappointing. And in some cases, not in our case necessarily, it can be really disruptive, disorienting, and damaging. But again, that's where instincts come in. Is when you sense something's not right, you just you separate as quickly as possible and as amicably as possible.
Actually, on that note, I'd like us to transition a little bit from, discussing the nuances of leadership within Master and Dynamic, which obviously is very intriguing. But I want to talk about, the broader tech industry, and some of the highlighted complexities of leadership at the highest levels. Now, particularly, a notable incident that happened fairly recently involved Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who was initially removed from his position only to be reinstated days later. Now, this incident, marked a significant employee upheaval, and garnered attention from major tech firms, and it underscored the delicate balance between leadership, employee trust, and board dynamics. Now, reflecting on this situation, I think that you could provide some valuable insights, especially regarding the challenges and opportunities that modern CEOs face. Now, I don't know. Did you hear about what happened back then?
Oh yeah, no,
I mean, a few weeks ago.
You'd have to be living under a rock, I think, not to hear about it. And of course, I was paying more attention maybe than others just because of a lot of the stuff we're doing going forward. Focuses on AI. A bunch of our key partners are front and center in that whole industry and market. And so, but I'm also, as an entrepreneur, I'm sort of always thinking and reading and listening to business stories. And so, I think, first of all, in terms of AI, I hear both sides. There's at least two sides of the coin, and one in AI is going to be terrible for humanity, and the other one, AI is going to be great for humanity. I recognize the potential dangers, but again, my mindset goes to, how do we make the best of it? And so I think it's going to be a positive thing overall. And I think, I think it was just, I don't pretend to know the inner workings of OpenAI, but clearly, I think most business people would agree that how things went down was not how most companies or CEOs would handle it or boards would handle it. I think, leaders like Satya Nadella from Microsoft, who obviously have a significant investment in AI and OpenAI. I think they're stepping in to help the situation, really showed true leadership and helped sort of right the ship. I think Satya saw right away, that OpenAI sort of imploding was not good for anybody. So I think the fact that these things become public is actually good, because it gives everybody a chance to learn, to watch and learn. And a lot of times you learn what to do by learning what not to do first.
Exactly. One thing though that stood out to me the most was the massive, unprecedented, loyalty from the OpenAI team that showed so much trust towards Sam. And from your perspective, how do you think that such a deep sense of trust and loyalty can be cultivated within a team? What lessons can we learn about team dynamics and leadership from this, would you say?
Well, I think in the case of Sam and OpenAI, I think it's an exception, not the rule. I think he's a thought leader, an entrepreneur, at the forefront of what will probably shape our world most over the next years, decades. And he's a I wouldn't say a big personality, but he's somebody people gravitate to. So I think, I don't want to say he's cult-like, but clearly He attracted a lot of great people to OpenAI who were betting on him, and when he left, they all sort of headed for the exits now, which I'm sure he both appreciated on a personal level, but maybe wasn't so happy about from a governance point of view, because he has a deep experience in being an entrepreneur and building companies. So what I'm trying to get at is the best a founder CEO can do is to future-proof their company against them leaving or having some terrible fatal accident, right? You never want the company to continue on for beyond any one person. So I think that's also something that I think, listen, Steve Jobs at Apple, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer at Microsoft, Sergey and Larry at Google, you name any company that was founder led and built, and then that founder leaves. I mean, the ability for these companies to grow and thrive under their next generation of leadership is really a testament to not just the products that they deliver, but also the organizations they've created. So I'm in awe. I'm in awe of these companies.
Amazing. Now, I only have 2 more questions for you. We've covered so much in today's episode, and thank you so much for your valuable insights, Jonathan. Now, I want to ask you, as we start to wrap up, if you had to name 3 top characteristics of a really good leader, what would those 2 be? I mean, 3 be, sorry.
3 characteristics of a leader. I think you have to, again, haven't really thought about this. I'm just going to spitball a bit. Top of mind, I think you have to be present, whether it be physically or accessible to people. I don't think it's number one, but it's one of them. I think you have to lead by example, show people that you're sort of, in the trenches with them when you need to be, and check in with them continually. I mean, it's amazing, just what a little sincere outreach that people don't expect, how much that can matter. And I think, you have to, I don't like the term visionary. I don't consider myself a visionary in any way, but you have to provide vision. They have to believe that, that their ideas 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, that they can get behind and believe in, which will excite them and keep them engaged and working hard on behalf of the company and its customers. I think that's those come to mind. I heard once, so I don't know who the quote came from, or maybe it's not just from one person, but I heard once someone say, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be part visionary, part cheerleader, and part son of a bitch. And I get that. I think you can appreciate all. I think you can appreciate all 3. So I think you get the first 2. Visionary, cheerleader. The son of a bitch, I think I would sort of tweak that a bit, is you have to be just ready to address any problems that come up quickly and effectively. And that's where you really need to show leadership, quite frankly. Watching how people react in tough times really can set the stage for organizations.
100%. Okay. And now finally, Jonathan, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were 17 years old, what would it be?
One piece of advice. I mean, I think I think I didn't follow my passions in a professional way until much later in my life. And I would say to myself, this is what I've tried to explain to my sons. This is what I tell other people. And I guess this is what I would tell anybody today. And I'd probably tell my 17-year-old self is really follow your passions. And because that's going to give you the best chance of personal and professional success. Okay,
very cool. Jonathan, thank you again so much for joining us today.
Thank you for your time and for all your patience in coordinating this. Much appreciated.
And that's a wrap on our engaging conversation with Jonathan Levine, delving into the world of high-quality sound and innovative leadership at Master and Dynamic. If your project is seeking expertise of top-notch agencies in audio technology, branding, or digital innovation, your solution is just a click away. Visit designrush.com/marketplace. Our handpicked selection of agencies is ready to help you navigate the dynamic world of technology and design, ensuring that your vision resonates with clarity and impact. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up with the latest industry insights. Again, I'm your host, Bianca Mayer. Stay curious and join us for the next episode.